Hello, guys. It is Everything's Lightly. I'm here with Jonathan Pageau today. We're going to do an advertisement because we want you to visit us, because we'll be together also with Jordan Hall, speaking about notions of hospitality as rebellion. What is the Georgian Supra? And could it actually be the way we actually save our culture? Become a first things field worker, please. Right now we have positions opening up in Sierra Leone, in Mozambique, and in South Africa. 2 years of your life. It's not long, but it could be the best thing that you ever do. Jonathan's here with me today. We talk about all kinds of stuff, including dating. We talk about what it is to be sort of the other half of a brotherhood. We talk about Jordan Peterson and his Spencer Clavin and these cats and what the Daily Wire is to him and how he makes sense of that world while living in his world. We talk about the Supra as, like I said, something that we have to try to figure out. We're doing it November 7th through 10th. Buy the tickets. They're almost gone. This is John. This is Everything's Lightly. Remember, if you ever want to travel, Gratitude Travel. They are our friends. In fact, we're in partnership. Amy and Jamie of Gratitude Travel. They just take your travel, turn it into a beautiful, affordable itinerary, and then you go. And if you go to Georgia, I'll meet you there. And I can show you a really good time. They do this for us, and then they give us the donation. Gratitude Travel. Check them out. This is Greg Gilbertson. This is Heavy Things Lightly with Jonathan Pageau. Jonathan, how are you, man?
Great. It's good to see you.
You look pretty good for okay, let's just talk. When you travel, is it a mess what you're eating? Like,
oh yeah, you bet. Oh, it's so bad. It's really rough. I've been basically gaining weight since 2017, like just since things started working with Jordan and stuff. So definitely been gaining weight, and traveling doesn't help because you're just always kind of so trying to get some discipline on that.
Will you be home for a little while now? Because you just got back. You were vacation, or was it Daily Wire stuff just now?
I was actually with Ralston College.
That's
they
right.
have this amazing program in Greece where they teach ancient Greek and modern Greek, and we went to Patmos, saw the cave of St. John, which was just beyond belief, and we went to Ephesus, and saw where St. John had been buried. So it was an amazing trip and an amazing program they've got there.
Well, I want you to take all that stuff, package it up, because you're going to come down November and be one of our guests. So I'm going to talk about the Supra. You're going to talk about the Supra as a type of radical activity in the modern world where everything is disembodied. That's what we're hoping for. Anyway, you talk about whatever you want, but that's on the agenda. And Jordan Hall's going to come down, bring his wife. It's a very intimate thing. There's just 30 people buying tickets. And so this is an ad, guys.
So what are the dates? Tell people the dates.
November 7th, which is everybody arrives on a Thursday. 7, 8, 9, we leave on Sunday the 10th. You can find all the numbers. It's not cheap because it's a fundraiser. So part of what you're doing for the weekend is we're feeding you. We're doing 2 Supras. So we're actually doing 2 full dinners. The second one, you'll actually be a tamada, because the idea is to learn the art of the tamada, which is this Georgian Feast. With Jonathan, you and I did one at Symbolic World.
Yeah, and it was really an amazing experience. It made me want to definitely learn more about it and do more in it, because it's, when you talk about liturgy and how life is liturgical, you can see that in these ancient traditions, they refine that to a place that, it's not only ritualistic in the sense that it brings us all together, but it also it has a deep pathos, because it's not liturgy per se, right? It's not like we're not in church. So it connects both this kind of deep pathos of existence and the joys and the sufferings of our life, and brings them together into this beautiful moment of participation. So it's really a powerful thing.
So there's this debate in Georgia. I think you'll like this. And it's really funny because So there's this inside outside like a conversation where the old Georgian historians, the ones who really attend to Queen Tamar, and if you go all the way back to the Orthodox Agape Feast, the Christian Agape Feast, they see this as very, very old. Then there's this new modern sort of Soviet history that says this is a 19th century push for nationalism. And the Soviets see this, they actually outlawed it at times in Georgian history in the last 200 years, or during the last 100 years, because it was too particular to the, quote, culture/faith.
Yeah.
But the expression, when you're Orthodox, what happens is you know it. You don't have to go back and research it. It's visible, and it's tangible, and you can smell it, you can feel it. And so I want to dig down, intellectually when you're down there and just hear what you say about it. And I can't wait. So this is an advert. This is you guys. We want you to come. Jonathan will talk about it on a little bit over there on Symbolic World, but I'm thankful that you're coming. It's going to be good.
Yeah, it's great. I'm looking forward to it. And like you said, it's what's wonderful about it is that it's intimate. We're going to spend the weekend hanging out and then also meeting and doing things a little more formal, but I think it'll just be an amazing time to talk and to interact.
Neil's coming. He's gonna.
Yeah, so there you go.
He'll sing at the
Jordan
table.
Hall and Neil and you and I. How
fun.
could it not be fun?
It'll definitely be fun. So guys, tickets still available. Check that out. And so we'll be together. Can't wait. I thank you. And so now do this for me. You guys are shooting this thing. Well, it's coming out any day now, right? Daily Wire.
I think my episode came out on Sunday. Last Sunday is when my episode came out.
It did.
It's a history of Western civilization. It's great. It's amazing. They named my episode "Christ, the Center of the World," which I was quite happy.
That's
quite
not
happy
bad.
that they went there. And so Daily Wire is mostly Christians. And so so I'm really happy, and it comes off really nicely. I think I tried to really help people understand how Jerusalem is a Christian city, how the founding of Jerusalem and the new founding of Jerusalem as Jerusalem was St. Helen. Before that, it was the Roman, whatever city. I think it was called Hadrianopolis or something. And it was not like people. It was no longer a part of the Jewish or the Christian world, but it was St. Helen who refounded it as the Jerusalem we know today. So it's
so that 300 years after the destruction of Jerusalem and the diaspora, the Jewish diaspora, it's a good point, because historically nobody's minding the city at that point.
No, it's like, it's like a backwater Roman town. They did what they usually do is they built a bunch of temples on top of all the sacred sites of the other faiths, which is actually not bad, because what it did is it also marked those places. So
that's right.
The Christians remembered where the crucifixion was, where the burial was, because also the Romans had literally built buildings on top. And so when St. Helen knocked down the temples, she found the places, the sacred places again.
Yeah. One thing I have to ask you, as you go deeper and deeper with Jordan and these characters from Daily Wire, my brother and I ask this question of ourselves as we make this film. We're trying to get people on board that aren't, let's put it like this. There's an inside and an outside. And you're definitely working with outsiders in the sense they don't share your faith or some of your vocabulary. How do we maintain integrity while also trying to immerse in a way that creates unity? It's a thing, even between my brother and I, who's so he's sort of an inside character. I'm sort of an outside character. How do we do that? Are you struggling with that? Does it happen in your world?
Well, my life has been that negotiation in my whole entire life. Some people know my wife never converted to Orthodoxy.
That's right.
And so, bringing my kids to church on Sundays alone, but also trying to have a prayer life. She's a Christian and very faithful Christian, more than I actually. And so trying to have a prayer life, how to negotiate that, how to find the balance between that. And so I don't feel uncomfortable in that world, and it's not complicated. I know it sounds complicated for people, but in my case, I don't find it complicated because I have a confessor and I have a bishop, and that's it. It's like that's where, and they are there to keep me in check and to make sure that I don't go too far and that I don't, and I've told them, I said, don't be afraid if you feel like I'm exaggerating, if you feel like I'm slipping too much into ecumenism, or if you feel like I'm also being too rigorous, because they might think that as well, then I said, don't be afraid to tell me. And so that to me that's where the buck stops for me. And I think that's a traditional way of doing it.
I don't know how else it would be. I think that's such, okay, so I go spiritual father and my wife is for lack of a better word, she's an introvert. She's an inside type person. She would rather not. It's not that she doesn't like other people. It's like, why bother with that? Like, I got very much like my brother. Like, why bother? Why am I bothering with that again? And I can't not bother. It's a joy to go out and do these tables with, a bunch of people that disagree. But I agree. At some point, you only have your spiritual father. What else? How else would you do it? I wonder if does Jordan think about, like, is he stretching himself? Is he starting to collude with the wrong people? Does he have to ask those questions?
Yeah. Well, it's also, I think this is the way that I see it. And it's also one of the reasons why I don't stress out so much about this, is that, I take St. Paul's analogy of the body very seriously. And I do believe that we have different functions, and the different functions we have to some extent also have to do with something like mercy and rigor, or, like you said, the kind of purity, and then also the openness, towards the people on the outside. And so when I see people that express that rigor, I don't freak out, because I think that's absolutely necessary. And I see the monks and I see how rigorous they are. And I look at the canons of the church and I'm thinking that none of us is doing anything. Like, none of us are coming even close to what the canons say life should be like. But at the same time, I do believe that there's also a role for the compassion, for the reaching out, for the St. Paul's, St. Paul's speaking to the pagans, where he's able to adjust his language. He's able to speak in a way that will be understandable for those that have no contact with the faith whatsoever. And so I believe that there's room for both of those. And so, and it's even like, I go pretty far in the sense that, people will say, like, for example, like, I'm not a big debater, right? And I don't like to debate, but I don't have a problem with people who do, in the sense that I think that that's a necessary component for some aspect of the church. I wouldn't want the entire church to be that way, but I also wouldn't want the entire church to be me, because then we'd be missing some aspect of a kind of like, no, this is it. Like, we have to be careful to remember, like, what the ideal is and what the line is. So that's the way that I see it in general. How
do you respond to this? I've heard this, and I say this too. I'm not afraid for the church. It's fine. I'm not in charge of that.
Yeah, but we're also not clergy. Like, that's also a thing that people always have to remember. It's like, I'm not a priest, and therefore I don't have to act like a priest. I'm not responsible for a flock. I have people that kind of follow my advice and follow what I'm saying. So I definitely have to be careful and I have to be cautious. But it's not exactly the same as being a priest and having to actually care for a parish or care for a. So it's a little different as well.
Have you made good friends? Have you made good friends along this journey that are really binding? Like, they're close to you?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I definitely think that it's weird, because it's also the same thing. I live in a world where there are no Orthodox people. And I live in a world where actually not only not Orthodox, but very few Christians. And so the idea, to me, making friends with non-Christians is an absolutely not only normal, but like inevitable thing, because I don't live in a world where there are Christians. My parish was 11 people until 3 years ago. And those people came from like an hour away in every direction. So it's like, I think it's also a thing of a situation. Some people live in places or in contexts where they're surrounded in an Orthodox community by 100, 200 Orthodox people. And so they don't understand the reality of those of us that live in a completely different world. And I think, like I said, there's places for both of those, and there's a need for both of those, because in some ways that's how the church grows, you know.
I was helped by living in Georgia in the 90s and now working there, because what I idealized the idea of an ancient Georgian church and ancient Georgian Christianity that would just be dripping everywhere. You couldn't miss it. And then you realize, there's just a guy smoking hookah, and he might remember to cross himself in front of a church. And you're like, okay, this is not what I thought it was. This world that I longed for when I converted, because it's in my mind.
Yeah.
It wasn't real. It was something I wanted, though. And I continued to be made, I think, a better man by this pursuit. But look, I'm into these tables now, Jonathan. You'll see, because also sometime at some point you come to the restaurant, because you know what we're thinking about doing? And I think you would do that. I think you would love this, is doing a podcast sort of convention in Greenville here and in and around the restaurant, where we invite people. We have this beautiful lawn. And it's a little stage. There's a way to bring us all together around the restaurant and around the stage, where we do something special. And of course, to benefit First Things as well. So that's a question I have. We're sort of in, First Things is sort of in the missionary business. It's not true, because it's Western. So Western Christian mission is just different. But you did it. Do you think this prepared you sort of for this? Because I call you a missionary. When my friends write and go, "What's Pageau doing?" I always say, he's doing exactly what someone does that has this call. This is what's happening to him. These guys, it's happening to him. So did it help you to be in Africa? Was that part of this journey?
I think so, and I think it also, because when I converted to Orthodoxy, like most people, I was, I had a rigorous tendency, because I love the church and I love and I had this whole ideal about hesychasm and the whole idea about the spiritual life and finding a spiritual father and having a starets. And obviously, like a lot of people, I had that ideal. But then being thrown out, in a world that is completely different from mine, I think it helped me to moderate my perceptions, right, of what it is to be an Orthodox Christian and what it is to try to be faithful in a situation that is nearly impossible. And I think that coming back to Canada, has also made it more tempered my understanding. Also, because our parish was a very tiny parish that struggled horribly for 30 years, constantly on the verge of not existing, and then basically in some ways embracing that, not embracing it in the sense that it's good, but understanding that, Orthodoxy is there to save our souls. And I think that that's also the thing about the rigorism aspect to it. We always have to remember that the rigorism of the church is never there to point fingers at people and wag at them. The people who embrace the rigor are doing it because they want to be close to God and close to Christ. It's something that they do, that rigor has to be applied to oneself. And I think that that's something we always have to remember when we talk about the canons, or we talk about how many times you should go to confession, or how many who gets to get to communion. We always have to understand that it's not about a bunch of rules we have to follow. It's about the best path for people to come into full communion with God. Yeah. And once you see it that way, then you understand the times when there's sometimes there's a kind of laxity which is necessary for whatever reason, and then sometimes there's a kind of rigor that helps you hone yourself and bring yourself into Christ. Wow. But that's just part of life,
Yeah, they're telling you you're going to love this, because the Tamada, who's the head, he's the Toastmaster of the table. The tradition is actually you're not supposed to stay up at the highest ideals for the whole table. You'll break it. you have to go up and down. In other words, you have to both often heaven, you have to offer heaven and offer earth. And so you'll see Tamada that is very pious, and then he'll tell a dirty joke.
Yeah.
And there's also this Melekipe who serves the wine, he's an image, a symbol of chaos. And then the Tamada and the Melekipe play off, where the Melekipe will pour wine while the Tamada's toasting, some long and intricate toast, and the Melekipe will lean over and say, "This guy's still talking? I mean, give me a break." And he'll try to do what you're alluding to, which is something like life.
Yeah.
Something like live, maybe.
Yeah, and we have to, I mean, we see it when you have children. The reality of having children is that, you have ideals for them and you have moral ideals for them. But if you press on that nonstop, you'll just break people and you'll break your children. And there's no reason, if that's not what you want. Yeah. And so you have to have the right hand and the left hand and pray for wisdom that you apply, a kind of mercy and a kind of softness. And then sometimes you have to lay down the line and that there's a game between those two sides. And, I think it's the same with the church.
I think it's the same too with you and me to a lesser extent, my brother. In public life, you probably have to do both too, right? There's probably a moment when you feel yourself, I thought you did it well at ARC, where you're like, sorry guys, we got to talk about something here. Like we're going to say the hard stuff right now about God and what's happening in this room. Too much of that though, and you're probably not useful anymore in that setting, right?
But not only that, this is the reality, is that you're also not invited. Like nobody wants, that's right. Like that's the difficulty. I get it all the time. Like people online saying, why don't you just tell him? Like just tell him. Torture. Tell him the thing. Tell him the thing. And you're like, torture. Okay. I mean, there's a reason why I'm in conversation with that person and you're not in conversation with that person, it seems. And so why don't you tell them the thing? Oh, they're not listening? I wonder why, yeah. Right? It's like life is complicated. And the thing too that people don't understand is that there are things that happen in private that do not have to happen in public. Right. And just because what you see in public looks a certain way doesn't mean that there are things happening in private that you don't have to know about, because like I said, you're not my spiritual father. You're not my bishop. Right. I don't have to account to you for those things. And so that's also something, so somebody just have to brush it off and hope, and just pray that you're doing the right thing in the right moment. And like I said, in private and in public, and find the right balance between the two. Well,
I had we can talk about brothers for a second. I don't know, I know of Matthew and read his book, but I'm really interested if you'll go down this road with me. I had a crisis because my brother was determined with his many followers and this vision he had for this film called Christianities. And we'll loop it either before or after we're talk. We'll put it in. But he wanted me to do it because of this thing you're talking about, the ability to sit down with anybody. And I like it. So he's like, I need you to do it. And we talked about it. But then as we started to plan, I don't know if this happens with you when you're being creative in the world you're in now. I couldn't do it. The rules were there were too many black and white moments. I couldn't, I felt like I was going to break and I was going to become a mouthpiece for something that I'm of, but it wasn't me. It was his mouth in mine. And it was really intense. And I actually prayed and got up from the prayer corner and went to my wife. I said, I don't think I can do it. You know what she told me? You got to do it. It's because you're bound to it's your brother. You have to honor him. And the reason that he even wants you in there is because he knows he needs you. And I thought to myself, that's like a podvig now. I don't want to do this. I don't actually want to do this. But you know what's happened? Something bloomed. Because he's now in the process of talking to all these characters that I think he would never talk to, and taking heat in his own world about there's drinking in our trailer. There's all this stuff that feels off, that feels outside. One person said there's Muslim music in your trailer. I was like, what? I don't even know what's Muslim music. Like, there's a flute, you mean? Like, I don't. It's all very weird. And then I realized that's part of the That's the creative moment, right? That when we bow down before the other somehow. Am I right about that? Or how would you I just confessed to you. It was a moment, man.
Yeah, it would. I mean, I understand it. You know, I love my brother very deeply. You know, but we definitely have our disagreements and our misunderstandings. And you know, he has his frustrations with me, which are probably similar, in the sense that, you know, sometimes he feels like I debase things too much, like I'm not as pure and I don't hit the right notes, and sometimes he feels like I don't acknowledge, you know, his input into my insight, you know, as much as I should. And he's right, like, you know, because at some point it just becomes part of your thinking. And he's had a massive influence on me. I mean, his understanding of, and so this is also the issue. It's like his understanding of scripture is deeper than mine. And so it's like you're caught in a weird situation where I'm not at his level, but I can't be. And so it's a difficult thing, but I love him very much. And, you know,
you're older, right?
Sorry, I'm older. Yeah. And I know that he's smarter than I am and that his understanding is deeper than I am. But I also know, in the same way that you're saying, that because of that, sometimes what he says is not understood by people, because he's actually so smart that sometimes he says things and it just goes right over people's heads. Like it just flies right over people's heads. And so it's a discussion and negotiation and conflict. But like I said, ultimately I believe that we're on the same team and that we're working towards similar things.
That's what's being revealed to me. I always knew. I mean, you know these things as a call. Like I'm supposed to love my brother that way, but it's becoming revealed. We're speaking more now. It's very fascinating. Did you grow up knowing? Okay, first of all, I'll just say, do you recognize? Does he recognize that you guys are different? And did you grow up knowing this, or were you bonded?
Yeah. No, we were friends. Especially we became friends in our late teens and early 20s, and we talked and talked. I mean, this is the thing, is that we talked for hours and hours. I mean hours, like not only hours, but like there are hundreds and hundreds of pages of emails between us, and just exchanging ideas, and you know, and so, you know, so we really did develop this way of thinking together, you know, and so it's part of our story, but we're very different, you know, and I'm a messier person, you know. I would rather say stuff and be imprecise and play around with it, and you know, and he wants that scalpel, right? And that's how he writes. Like his book Language of Creation is written with a scalpel. Like every word is exactly the word it has to be, right? And every image is exactly what it has to be. And so he that's his approach. He wants to get it all right and then present it to the world. And I'm more like rah, 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 and I'm like messy, and I'm kind of playing around. And so I totally understand why it's frustrating. It can be frustrating for him to
same
watch
dynamic.
That, so.
Same dynamic for us. Even coming up early, he knew exactly who his friends with. I will not be friend with that person. With that person, he will be my friend. It's like he perceived already the edges and the contours of the character. And I was like, let's just try it all out. Let's just invite everybody and see what happens. And then, not my friend. But my point is I saw this early, but I did not appreciate it. I was not a great big brother in that sense. I was, I was a little embarrassed of him as it went. And now, when he became a priest, I had to rethink things. And then when he came home, I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to relate to this guy that's been in Greece for 18 years? And anyway, that's all very interesting. I don't know if people out there care, but let's do this for a second, if you want to. As far as like symbolic world goes now, how do you even line up what you want to talk about? I'm fascinated with this because it's not a baby anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's true. Like, it's true that, I mean, we've been doing this now. I've been doing this for like 7 years now. And so sometimes I do have the feeling like, all right, I've said everything I need to say. You know, it's like I've just said it all. If you need to see, go see another video. One of the things that's really given me a lot of a breath of fresh air and a kind of sense to move forward has been working with Richard.
You know,
Rowland.
he came to our event in Washington, in Seattle.
Yeah.
He was a champ.
Mean, he's amazing, and his insight is so close to mine. By the way, like, you know, this is my ad now. We're starting the Purgatorio, which is the second book of Dante's Divine Comedy. We did Inferno, and so we're offering it as a course on Symbolic World. And the first class was just
fire,
which was amazing. Like, it was really so insightful. And usually we have like 2 hours together, but now we had 3 hours every week together. And so just diving in and going over and getting just these amazing insights about the text. And so anyways, we invite people to join. But that's definitely given me like a little bit of breath of fresh air. And the other thing that I'm understanding now is that just because I said something once, that's my problem. It's like, if I said it once, I feel like I said it, you know. I don't know why should, but just because you said something once doesn't mean people understand it. And so I'm now trying to see other concepts I presented that I need to bring back together in a clear way and say, okay, so let's like for example, I'll give you an example of one of the things I want to do now is, you know, I've talked about the imagery of the morning star and the idea of like the star that receives light from the sun. You know, I've talked about it, but I never brought it together in one video, right? Where it's like, you know, so I'm going to do like the symbolism of Lucifer, you know, and do it in a way that brings it all together so people can kind of see, you know, why is it that we call the Satan Lucifer, but we also call Jesus Lucifer, and we call St. John the Baptist Lucifer. It's like, why do we have all these names for the same word for like people, characters that are clearly different, you know, and try
but
to.
You know, part of the beauty, the blessing, I have this somewhat, but you have it because you've got the time because of the success, is you probably are called to help other people. And by the way, as a teacher for many years, you're right. They're not going to get it the first time. It's really not how anything works in terms of learning basketball, anything. That's brilliant. Yeah, double back on those. I've been doing that with my Substack. I go back to old podcasts I did and I turn them into articles. And I thought people would call me out, but they don't. They want more. They're like, well, let's go with that. I mean, you can't learn it enough, right? You can keep going always.
Yeah, and also because it's not true that everybody listens to everything you've ever done. So, and people don't necessarily go into the old catalog of the things you've done. So it's good to bring back ideas to the forefront, you know, because a lot of people, you know, they don't have the attention. They'll just take the last thing.
Yeah, Richard and I won't tell you what his nickname was by the end of the weekend, but let's put it this way. We had fun. He likes to wrestle. Has he wrestled you yet?
No, that's not happening.
Don't wrestle
I'm
him.
not going to let that happen. There's no way. He's like 6 foot. He's like twice my size. There's no way.
I was messing around with him. This was in our. You'll do this with us after the Supra. We've had a great time. We do this thing called the Philo Jam. It's natural. The table breaks down. Just people go away, but like this core people stay.
Yeah. And
it turns into less toasting and more just philosophy jam. And so he would sit around and dominate these things, and eventually someone would say, like, I think that's bullshit. Like, and we would come at him, and he was like, "Come on, let's go." And then we're like, "What's he talking about?" He would wrestle you, and it's jiu-jitsu stuff, and it's not funny. It's not funny.
Yeah,
you guys are like, ha ha ha. No, all of a sudden your arm's upside down, and you're dying. Like, it hurts. I love that guy a lot. He's a unique. He's like you, Jonathan. I think he can take something very, very complex and he can offer it back, but he does it with some humor and humility. And it's really, really nice to hear you guys out there doing it.
Yeah. And he's helping me run Symbolic World Press now. I mean, we're basically partners in that venture, you know, and he, you know, he's like, he's obviously a ridiculous person because through all the things that he does, he's also like a federal bank, you know, like checker or something. Like he checks on federal banks stuff. So he has this great capacity to kind of understand money and finances and all that stuff. So he's really helping me to to kind of run Symbolic World Press in the best way possible.
Well, next time as we go, we'll get him and all of us will sit together like we did down in Symbolic World. How has Symbolic World worked out for you? The February event.
It was amazing. It was really actually amazing, and I keep hearing about how, it was transformational for a lot of people. I mean, I was in it, and for me, I'm not completely an extrovert, so it was a lot to manage to have all these people there, and it's your event and all that stuff. But after that, I realized a lot of people have come back to me and said that it was a transformational for them. And
it was.
Not only that, but how just the people, the quality of the people that they met. And, a good example would be I went to Ralston. So I went to Ralston to meet the students. And I had mentioned in passing in a Q&A something about how Ralston is a good idea for people in their 20s. And now I think it's like 4 people who were at the summit in their class of like 25 have heard about it at the summit. Wow. Which is like, it me, it was an image of how kind of precious the moments were and how people were really there and really attentive and really participating.
Yes.
So, we're going to, I mean, we said we'd never do it again, but we are going to do it again probably in next year. Not next year, but the one after. Yeah.
Well, you got to take all that angst and then it's almost all out of your body now. And there's going to be a moment in the near future where it's going to feel good again to do.
Yeah, that's right.
It's happening. Well, I want to apologize because I was the guy who was doing the Q&A when our friend was refusing to ask a question for like 20 minutes and I let him keep going. I don't know if you remember that. He was in a kilt. And
that guy.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, you bet I remember the guy in the kilt. How could I forget that?
But this was an example of an open character, myself, really rooting for the guy, even after 15 minutes of the question. And I looked up at the stage at you and you were like, John, what are you doing already? Get this guy to ask this question. The whole weekend was nuts. And then you called Father Silouan up. I was very happy about that, which I'm still trying to get him to come down for our November event.
That'd be great. Oh, man, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, no, because he's good like that.
I got his icon just there. I had to move it because of some renovations. I have it right there back there.
He's supposed to be painting me a Saint Nino of Georgia, equal to the Enlightened. I mean, and equal to the apostles. So how about end with this for me? I got a question that a buddy of mine wanted me to ask. There's this sense right now that there's all these men, not just in Orthodoxy. I was just up at a Supra in Canada with a bunch of Byzantine Catholics. It was very fascinating, actually. I kept trying to figure out, you guys sound like Orthodox. It's a unique, the history is political, right? That's what that's about. But it was really nice. But it was, again, bunch of guys. And men are being invited in. And my friend was saying, well, ask Jonathan about the idea of the Ethiopian, the outsider who marries in. And how should we navigate this in this world of ours where it's almost like you have to be willing to date the outsider? Mm-hmm. And I don't know what you tell folks or that bump into you, but what do you think about that question? How would you navigate that as a person in 2024?
You're talking about actual marriage, or are you talking about?
Yeah, marriage. Like, how would you? Yeah, as a single, let's go male. What is it? I'm not afraid of the outsider, but for some of these guys who found their identity in the inside, in Orthodoxy, like in the deep canonical inside, they're nervous about dating the woman who's not Orthodox. But
well, look, the reality. This is one of those things where you just have to live with the reality that you're facing, And the question, the reality that we're facing right now is, it's true. There are more men that are coming into the church, like, by a factor of 10 maybe, and there are less women that are there in the church. That's a reality. And so the question poses itself to you, which is that, do you want to become a monk? Do you think that's your calling? And if the answer is no, then we have to find some form of flexible participation. And, we have ways in the church for Orthodox people to marry non-Orthodox that exist. It's always a kind of concession, but it also exists. And so, usually what it is that if the person is willing to raise the children and have them baptized Orthodox and raised in the Orthodox Church. Usually depends on your bishop, but like I know my bishop has blessed those types of unions, and so it really, you have to just understand that life isn't the ideal, and that at some point you have to kind of live with the reality of and also, I mean, but obviously if you're a Christian man and you're looking for a wife and there are no women, Orthodox women that are there, you obviously don't want to now then go to a strip club and pick up a stripper, right? You have to find you have to move out slowly and carefully out from your, out from your circle into things that are closer to your values and to the things that you care about. I mean, obviously, I think the next thing would be to find a Christian woman who's faithful, and loves God, and that's better than, a secular person. But it's not, obviously it's better to marry an Orthodox person, but I don't know. I mean, a lot of the really strict Orthodox will not like what I'm saying, but this is just the reality of being Orthodox in America.
Yeah, I'm with you. They can like or not like. It doesn't really matter. Like, we have to work in reality.
That's right.
And so we try our best. Also, guys, you got to have a better first line than, like, I saw this online. What's your favorite spider, miss? Like, you can't have like insult vocabulary. It doesn't help you. Doesn't mean you got to be suave, but like you have to be, I would say, open to the possibility of telling the truth. Just be honest. You know what I'm saying? Like, I meet so many guys.
I feel sorry for the young guys, because where do you meet people today? I don't even know. Like, where do you meet people? Like,
how'd you meet your wife?
I met her at church.
There you go.
So that's pretty easy. But it wasn't an Orthodox church. It was a Protestant church. But I don't totally know where people meet others now. I mean, school, like in school, people meet them in college, meet them. I don't know, because
your girls are getting older. Yeah. My girls are in their 20s now. I hear all the stories about this, and they're Orthodox, or they're trying. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I don't get it. They're not attracted to the rigorist, and those are most of the men that they're finding in church. Mm. But we'll find out. We'll find out, Jonathan. How is it being a parent as your girls get older? It's okay, right?
It's great. I mean, I really
like it.
We just actually, my daughter just moved into her first apartment yesterday, and so we moved her in Montreal. She's going to school there. So it's something.
That's a big deal.
Something.
All right, we'll pray for you. All right, so the advertisement, guys, is there's some tickets left, but we're going to sell them now because Jordan Hall and I just did a pod. You're doing a pod with me, and it helps first things. And Jonathan, I know this is dear to you on some level, is that our guys go for 2 years, and the kind of metanoia, the kind of change that happens when you're living really close to folks who are in fundamentally different culture, different economic status, like poor. Yeah. I can't name anything in my life short of my baptism that was an awakening. And it's just a blessing to offer it to other people. And I know that you got a soft spot for this.
Yeah, definitely.
And you've always been supportive of our work.
No, I love when I discovered how First Things worked. I really was impressed, because that's, the work that we did in Africa had a similar tone, mm-hmm. right? Where it was something like, be humble at first, because aid workers are people who come, they often come with the kind of like, I have the knowledge, I have the money, here I come, I'm going to help you. But I think that coming rather in a position of humility at first, to say, you actually don't know anything, learn from the culture, get to, learn the language, connect with the community. And then at some point, then the places where your skills and your connections and your capacity will be useful, will start to appear to you in a clear way, and in a way that won't do damage, right? Because sometimes you can actually go and try to help people, but you end up making it a lot worse. Yeah.
The other thing that happens, and I know it happened to you, is when you live close to when you're in the simplicity of an agricultural, we work a lot of our sites are out in the boonies. when you live that way, you find out that the most beautiful people around you are not thinking about Canon 6 of the Council of Chalcedon. They're not there. Now, that doesn't make them good or bad. You can't exercise certain thoughts. And what happens is you enter into a different kind of relationship it's about actually being present. And wow, so many of the guys that want first things, they come to dry out because the internet is, it's all like it's all gnosis. It's just all here. And the drying out is fascinating, Jonathan, to watch that process happen. It gives me joy, but it's hard. It's hard, guys.
It's demanding. It's a breaking. It breaks you. It breaks your expectations of what, like you said, what it means to be in a relationship with someone. Like, to be in a relationship with someone who, let's say, is not educated, and you're used to living in a world of educated people.
It's hard.
It kind of breaks you because you're like, oh, what do we talk about? Like what?
The cows, bro.
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
No, it's like you just actually being with someone has more value than the conversation that you're having.
That's right. That's right.
So,
all right. Well, I'll see you, if not before, I'll see you in November. Yeah. I'm going to Georgia tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah, bringing 6 people.
I need to get to Georgia with you as well. Like, that is definitely something we need to keep.
It's funny. There's some priests that'll take you to all the relics and the beautiful monasteries. We do that too, but we also do the Supra. So, and we'll do it with guys who take their shirts off and make tzvadi, which is barbecue, out of like chairs. So I'll explain it in 1 second. My buddy had an old chair and he needed to make this barbecue meat. So he needed the coals. So he went over and broke up the chair, and we're all watching him going, what's he doing? And the chair became the coals that grilled the meat. And 3 hours later, 4 hours later, your shirt's off and you're drinking cha-cha. And I'm just telling you guys, it's a proper kind of high. It's not drunk. Father Silouan told me this. There's different, as you know, the imagery and the symbolism, it's all drunk is not the same kind of drunk.
Yeah. But also, like, it's interesting because in the Supra, at least that was my experience. Like, my experience in the Supra was there was always wine. But you want to participate. At least I wanted to participate. And I wanted to be able to pay attention to people's toasts, and I wanted to be able to toast. And so I think that made it it almost made it like a moderating.
That's what it is. That's exactly right.
Where it's like if I've got my wine, I'm kind of sipping the wine. At some point, I'm like, okay, I need to be able to pay attention. And so at least for me, I never felt like I was tempted even to go into excess, because it's like you want to be able to be there.
I was just reading one of these academic papers on the Supra, literally like today. I was sending it to our guys. The Persians visited early, right at the time of Queen Tamar, so 1100s. And they make a comment that the Georgians drink all the wine, but yet they don't appear drunk. The Georgians say this all the time about their table. Now, I've seen guys get drunk. I'm not trying to be a fool about this. But there is a proper kind of joy that it tempers the wine. I don't know how to explain it. It really does. Yeah. We'll do it. And I know people are excited about it. And Jonathan, I will say this. It is an answer. I can see this thing. People are like, well, it's Georgian. I've heard a couple of priests say, well, we have our own. We're Americans. And I'm like, no, I get it. What you do is like all things. You just try the traditions out. Try it 3 times. By the 4th time, it's your own. But the Georgians have the proper template. So go ahead and use it. But we're actually, that's one of our missions with First Things now in the United States, is to make this a possibility for you. And it feels weird, but in our suburban culture, where I literally have Americans tell me we don't do anything. Okay, we don't do anything. We eat in front of the television. I'm like, why not just borrow this? And it changes people. So I'm excited about it. I am. All right, I'm talking too much. Jonathan, it's so good to have you as a friend of, my friend and also First Thing. So thank you, brother.
Oh,
we'll be in touch.
You. Yeah, I can't wait. And I can't wait to see all of you that will be there as well.
And they can't wait to see you, to be honest. It's going to be nice. So,
it'll be great.
All right, guys, we'll see you in Florida. Thank you, Jonathan. All right, guys. There's going to be hookah. People are like, well, that's why I'm not going. We don't have to smoke the hookah. Hookah is not, it's not marijuana. It's just very light tobacco. It's just smoke from a communal pipe. It's fun. And you don't have to drink the wine even. I would like you to buy a ticket no matter what you drink or eat. But guys, we're going to learn the art of the tamada. Come. We need your support. Still have some tickets left. Write me at my email. Go to www.first-things.org. Look up the drop down that says Art of the Tamada. Click on that thing and you're on your way. I'm on my way too to Georgia. I'm bringing 6 men and 1 woman to go and learn the art of tamada and also visit the holy places. Then another group is coming. So much of my September will be hosting folks. You can get on one of those trips next year. You can through Gratitude Travel with Amy and Jamie. You can also support First Things by becoming a field worker. This is really important. If you're still listening, I'm thankful. Please consider becoming a field worker. We have positions that are opening up right now in Sierra Leone, Mozambique, South Africa. Soon after some time, Guatemala. Soon after some time more, Georgian Republic. Consider it. Change your life. It's a good thing to do. It's a way to give. And when you give, you know what happens. You receive. It's just called being whole. You just become whole. Being whole is good. Consider it. It's the number one thing we're asking for. And your money. Do $5 a month. On Zephy now, our new platform, you can give money and you don't have to pay any fee. We don't get charged, you don't get charged. Zephy is amazing. I highly recommend it. It was built as a pay it forward platform. So you can give some money to Zephy too. Love it. One of our best volunteers, Ryan, has been working on that for us. Check it out. Become a monthly donor. And then we talk every month and hang out. Love you guys. Our work is wacky and weird, but man, is it rewarding. Visit the restaurant, KP Restaurant. And if you ever want to throw a party anywhere in the world and you want a tamada, boy, do I have the guys for you. Daniel Paternos and David Maricos Rhodes started a beautiful venture called Supra Dinner Society. And they want you to throw a party, and they'll help you do it. Businesses, guys, big businesses, do it. How are you not doing it already? It brings people together in a way where you'll be like, that was worth every single penny. Who loves you? This is my maybe last episode before I take off. See you soon. Peace.